Hello, everyone. Welcome to the virtual book launch of Heal or Die, the first book of the Voice Memoirs. Would love to see you. Just say hello in the chat and tell me where you're dialing in from. And I'm really excited to share this momentous occasion with you today. I don't know how many of you have had the experience of being inspired to write a book and then going through the whole process. Hello, Lynetta from Allen, Texas. Great to see you. But it is a life-changing experience. And I'm really excited to be able to share this with you guys. All right, let me go through what we're going to experience today. We are going to meet the author, me, Tenay Benes. I'm going to read do a live reading of the chapter More Than You Know, which is an additional chapter above and beyond the 6 free chapters that you get when you sign up for the book launch newsletter on my website, ihearthevoice.com. I'm going to have you play book launch bingo while I'm reading that chapter, and I'll give you a link on how to do that if you're dialing in from a computer. And then whoever gets bingo and emails it to me first gets a $20 Amazon gift card. And you can use that card to get a book, or you can use it for anything else. You do not have to use it, to pay me back kind of deal. I'll talk a little bit about the story behind the story of the chapter More Than You Know, and then we'll do a little live Q&A if you guys have any questions. And then finally, we will end with a raffle to win a free book in the format of your choice. That can be Kindle, ebook, paperback, hardcover, or audiobook. And that raffle will be anybody who already signed up for the book launch newsletter. And I have that list right here. So with that, hello, Jane's Hope Healing Garden, Laurel, Maryland, and Amelia Kaufman from Evergreen, Colorado. Thanks so much for joining us. And hello to Erin Cleopa, who sent a comment. Serena from Kent, Washington. All right, well, we got the East Coast to the West Coast, and we got middle of America as well. That's awesome. This pretty much represents my life right here. All right, so with that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself in case you don't know me very well or you're watching this video later. I'm Tenay Benes. I am a daughter of God. I am a wife to Brett, my loving husband, mom to this little munchkin. I was born and raised in Turkey. Turkiye, I guess, is the new way to say it in English after they passed that resolution at the United Nations. And was born and raised Muslim, and then immigrated to America when my mother remarried to an American, and then grew up on the East Coast, did the Army for 20-ish years. I'm retiring right now as Lieutenant Colonel from the Army Reserve and in doing intelligence for all those years. And somewhere in there, in all of that time, I became a Christian, started following Jesus, and went to seminary, fell out of seminary, and then began this long healing journey. And this book is a memoir of the first 5 years of that healing journey. And it's actually 2 books in one. The first, 2/3 of the book let's see, 2/3, yeah, 2/3 of the book are like the story of what I experienced in those first 5 years that helped me move more and more toward healing. And then the second third of the book is appendices on what I learned during those 5 years that helped me, and the things that I tend to like share with other people to help them either launch or progress in their healing journeys. And I think that's the primary reason why I felt God lead me to write some of these stories, and also this appendix that I really didn't want to write because it's complex. And when we boil these things down into books, we have to simplify the complex so that we can communicate it in a primarily two-dimensional format. But that's why it's more to invite people to consider these aspects of healing, so that when they engage in their own healing journey, which is going to be a unique experience for them, they have some ideas that can then bubble up to the top when it's the right time to try a new idea. In that time, I also got a bachelor's in biology and pre-medicine from Johns Hopkins University. I got a master's of business administration in entrepreneurship and consulting from William & Mary. I did 2 half-masters, one in ministry before I fell out of seminary, one in psychology before I felt like that's not the direction that I was really meant to go. And I'm now hopefully finishing off that master's in information science, because my husband and I launched a company, Benes Companies, 3 years ago, to curate holistic healing hubs, online or in person, for people through media, through healing technology, and potentially in the future through either clinics or communities. And one of the goals in that is to develop healing technology where people with chronic illness can go into a website, put in their symptoms, and get recommendations of a broad range of providers, products, and other services, healing services like retreats and things that could help them with their healing journey beyond what the average person is exposed to in Western healthcare, which is really not well suited for chronic illness. It tends to be really optimized right now for acute illness or just managing symptoms, but not curing chronic illness. So that is kind of my personal and professional background. So this book is the memoir. I've told you it's 2 books in one. And then I'll quickly share that in 2017, I'd been into my healing journey about 3 years, and I heard God say, I need you to give me your social media footprint. Like, instead of taking photos of what you're eating for dinner and talking about that at great length, which is not a bad thing, but if that's the only thing, then in my life that seemed insufficient. God said, why don't you tell people about your healing journey and what you're experiencing me do and all of that. So I started writing God stories on Facebook primarily, and then because I'm that old generation, I'm dating myself, and learning how to write long stories in a short, pithy kind of way. And then in 2021, I felt God saying, okay, why don't you take all that and move it to a WordPress blog. So I started blogging, and that's a different format, a different way of writing. It's longer, it has a different arc, different rhythm and tempo for in order to make it meaningful and impactful. And then in November of 2024, I heard God say, okay, it's time to write a book. And I was like, what am I going to write about? I don't know what to write. And God was like, you've been writing it all these years, just write it in a different format. And that's where the Voice Memoirs came. Because at first I was like, well, I'll just quickly write my whole experience from then until now. And then about 100,000 words in, I was like, I'm running out of room. You can't. It's going to be like a multi-volume book. So that's when I decided to make it a series and write book 1. And then I don't know when I will write book 2, but this is definitely not a finished story. It's just a glimpse into that season, 5 years of my story, to give people encouragement if they're in those beginning 5 years themselves. All right, so with that, I'm going to share, I hope in the chat, I'm going to share a link to a Google Doc, because we're about to do the live reading of another chapter, More Than You Know. So if you're at a computer, I'm going to invite you to go and click on this link right now, because it will take you into a bingo card deck. And I see one person has already clicked in. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pick any one of these bingo cards. And at the top, it says in red, write your name here to start playing. So pick one of those cards and write your name. And if someone's written a name on their card, then you need to just move on to the next card in the deck. And everyone pick a card that is blank and replace that text, write your name with your name. And then we're gonna start playing bingo with that. So I'll wait until I see people writing. So I see the first person writing on the first slide. Possibly, is it allowing you to edit? It should allow everyone to edit. Let's see. If you're having any problems editing that deck, then please come into the chat. Okay, I see someone editing, so that's good. All right, I'm going to give just a couple of minutes for you guys to do that. Hello, Serena. You've got deck slide 3. I've got Amelia on card 1. Okay, so after you write your name, you can practice clicking on a heart and moving that heart around. That is going to be your bingo piece. So as you hear one of these words, you'll just move a heart onto that box. And then when you get bingo, you can come back. Let's have you, Lynetta says you're on your phone. Sorry, Lynetta, you're just gonna have to watch and enjoy. Whoever else gets bingo, as soon as you get bingo, I want you to come back in the chat and say bingo, like in big letters. And then you will be the winner of that $20 Amazon gift card. So I'll just give one more minute for everyone to get settled. Okay. All right. We've got one more person. I want to see if you're able to write your name. Oh, Elisa, hello. Great to see you. Okay, it's going to be competitive. Are you ready? Are you set? All right, here we go. More Than You Know is, what chapter is it? So I gave you guys the first 6 chapters when you sign up for the newsletter at ihearthevoice.com. And then More Than You Know is the 32nd chapter of the book. And the book has 63 chapters and 4 appendices. So gives you a sense of where in the chronology that is. Steamed broccoli. When the voice requests my attention. Do you see that man at the bar? The voice asks. I look up, and see a light-skinned black man in his 30s, sitting at the bar and scrolling on his iPhone while sipping on a beer. He is wearing a sweater over a collared shirt and jeans. By his dress, he looks to be in a professional services job. I think to myself that he is probably a single guy with a small television, here to watch the game on a large television. Yes, I see him, I reply. He's scrolling through his phone to see if there's anyone he can talk to, because he wants to commit suicide, the voice explains. What? I almost choke on the sip of water I'm drinking at that exact moment and have to put the cup back down to compose myself. Do you see that woman at the table nearest to yours? The voice continues. I look at a woman who is seated at a table for one, catty corner from my table. She's a bigger-bodied white woman in her 40s or 50s. She's wearing nice jewelry and seems well put together. She's eating by herself because she was sexually molested as a child and has never been able to trust men long enough to fall in love. My heart begins to hurt for her. I don't know what to say. I mean, what do you say to something like that? And that waitress who just passed you by, the voice says, as they direct my attention to my right. She's trying to earn enough tips tonight to not get kicked out of her apartment. She's a single mom, her baby daddies have abandoned her and her kids, and she's afraid of becoming homeless. A surge of emotion wells up in my heart. Why are you telling me this? Do you want me to go to them, to tell them you see them and know their pain, to offer them help? I ask as tears begin to fill my eyes with the realization of just how powerless I feel to help anyone in so much pain. No, I don't want you to do anything for now, the voice replies. I just want you to see, as I do, how much pain people are in. It's so much more than you know. I want you to pray for them from afar. Share with me what you desire for them. Most importantly, keep their secret. Guard it, treasure it, hold it close. Don't tell anyone what I've told you about another person's pain. Show me that I can trust you with people's deepest and most vulnerable wounds. My food comes, but I've lost my appetite. I stare down at my plate, fighting back huge sobs. How does one even begin to process this? I'm overwhelmed by this brief glimpse into the hearts of those around me. I feel disappointment that God doesn't seem to feel any urgency to step in, to change their situations right now. However, I have no other good option but to pray as best as I know how. I pray for the man to be set free of a spirit of suicide, the woman to be healed from childhood trauma, and the waitress to be blessed with abundance to raise her children in peace. When I go to church next, I hear testimonies about how God gave this person a word about so-and-so, and God gave that person a vision about such and such. Yet I hold back the desire to share all that God has started revealing to me about strangers out in town. It feels too intimate, too precious, too vulnerable to share in public. Over the following months, I apparently start earning the voice's trust because they share more and more with me about other people's pain. I commit to treasuring this knowledge in the vault of my soul. April 2016. My spiritual training continues, and I begin to hear something else. When I'm speaking to someone about God, I start looking into that person with my mind's eye to see how they're receiving what I'm saying. Whenever I do, I hear in my head a loud statement that speaks over the voice coming out of their mouth. The statement is something like, I'm afraid that I'll never be loved, or I've been hurt by my parents, or I am in a lot of pain. At first, these voice-over-voice statements confuse me because although they seem to be about the person who is speaking, they are out of sync with what that person is saying. One day, I decide to test these statements out. I strike up a conversation with a woman at a coffee shop. We eventually move to the topic of God, and just as she's saying to me, "I used to believe in God, but I don't anymore," I hear a loud statement in my head. "I'm afraid that I'll never be loved." I decide to try replying to both the statement out of her mouth and the statement in my head at the same time. "It's understandable for people to stop believing in God," I reply softly, "when many of us have never tasted the kind of love that we read about in books. I think somewhere deep within us, we know that God is love, so if we haven't experienced real love, then that must mean there's no God. Can I pray for you right now to experience the kind of love that people write about in books so that you can have a grid for experiencing God's love in the future?" A bewildered nod from the woman, a hands-on prayer in the coffee shop, and a loving encounter with the living God ensues. It works! After that positive tree fruit test, I try to reply this way to every single person every single time. The verdict? It works every single time. I realize that the voice has given me some sort of spiritual ability to hear the cry of people's hearts. Remembering my earlier lesson on cherishing people's deepest wounds, I quickly learned to turn this ability on and off because I don't want to expose people's emotional nakedness unless there's something I can do to cover them up with love. October 2024. 9 years later, the voice tells me that it's time for me to launch from my father's house, to go out on my own and learn to thrive as an adult child would. As I spiritually launch, I only take those spiritual abilities with me that I've developed within my own human spirit, but not any of those that the voice lent me for their purposes, by grace. As a result, I lose the ability to hear the cry of people's hearts, as well as a few other spiritual abilities. When I look into the eyes of people around me, though, I still remember what it was like to hear the cry of their hearts and cherish it, just as God does. That is the end of the chapter, and the winner of Book Launch Bingo is Amelia from Evergreen, Colorado. Congratulations! It looks like it was a very close race there at the end for Amelia, Serena, and Jane's Hope Healing Garden, but I want to congratulate Amelia, and I will follow up with you. I have your email from the newsletter, and this one fly that also wants to be in this launch. I have your email, so I'll just reach out to you and send you that gift card through that email, unless you prefer a different email. Okay, congratulations. Oh, Jeremiah, welcome. Want to share with everyone where you're dialing in from? All right, so now we're going to switch to just a live Q&A. So I think there's a functionality here. Start a Q&A. Oh, that's me asking you questions. So I'm going to give you guys just a couple of minutes if you want to ask questions either about that story or about the book. I'm going to give you time to ask those questions right now, and then at the end of this live Q&A time, I'll share with you just a little bit more about the story behind that chapter in the book. So go ahead. Amelia says, congrats to all of you as well. Thank you, Tenay. I love these words so much. Absolutely, my pleasure. Jeremiah is dialing in from Nigeria. That is the power of the internet. The Jeremiah Emmanuel. Amazing. All right, so any questions you have about that chapter or the first 6 chapters you heard, or anything about the book. Amelia asks, what was it like to first begin to hear? Did you feel a certain type of way? It's a great question. I think there's 2 sub-questions in there, so I'd like to break them out. The first time that I realized that what I was hearing was not from my own soul, that not all my thoughts were mine, was kind of frightening, actually, because I had never been taught about hearing from the voice of God, like, directly. In fact, I'd been taught the opposite, that God doesn't do that anymore. And so because I had never heard any stories of anyone doing this who I knew personally, and therefore could build a relationship with them, and to see if it bore good fruit, then I actually felt really afraid. And I realized over the years that was kind of a fear of spiritual things. And I've also learned that all fear is from not God, the other side, whether you want to call that Satan, demons, dark energy, whatever you want to call it. So I realized that sometimes we can be afraid of good things. But then as I started progressing and started trying to be brave about this experience and use what I knew, to what I had in front of me, the people I knew in my circle, the Bible, and other things to try to figure out how to overcome this fear, I realized that I'd been hearing this type of guidance all my life. And over time, I realized that other people hear this kind of guidance all their lives too. The question is who they attribute it to. If they get some sort of really amazing creative idea that brings great joy and fruit and helps other people, like if they think that came from just themselves, okay. But if they realize that thoughts like that tend to come and produce this abundant, beneficial impact on their community or themselves, and they realize maybe this is not just me, maybe there's this cooperation between me and a loving higher power, whether you call that God, the universe, God through Jesus, Allah, like there's, a whole bunch of spiritual paradigms that people put that in. But when I realized that I had been getting guidance like this all my life, and as I'm talking to my friends and people I minister to, they have as well, then it was like, oh, this is not so scary after all. This is just actually a reality of the human condition. And I'd like to normalize it so that we can then discern, like, which of these thoughts that are coming into my head are from love, light, life, those spirits, and then which thoughts are from darkness, death, and we can say no to those. And then of course there's then the thoughts in my head of my soul trying to, like, figure it out, or my body, like asking questions, being curious, making choices. Like those thoughts are from, I would say, our human soul and our human body. So thoughts of like, I'm hungry, that's probably our human body, right? But thoughts of like, I want to be a better person, that's probably our human soul. So sorting out those types of concepts, me wrestling with them, not even really telling, like, this is the way, but like, this is what I think I understand so far, is the basis of a lot of this book. You're saying, I was curious if you felt overwhelmed. Yes, lots of questions in these questions. Thanks for your honesty. Serena asks, how did hearing from the Lord impact your leadership in the Army? Any stories you'd like to share? Also a great question. So I have many Army stories. In fact, the Army I have heard from the voice is the first area of my life that I gave to God. And the strongest example would be a reference to a chapter in the book that talks about In my second deployment, I was in an area of Baghdad in the army, and we were losing. And like Iraqis were slaughtering each other. It was like Sunnis, the Shias killing the Sunnis. It was a really horrific situation. And I remember I was a brand new Christian. Like I was a month in the Lord when I redeployed back to Baghdad. It was my second deployment, my first time as a Christian. And I remember feeling this overwhelming feeling of like, I think I'm the only person in this unit who can figure out how to change this. And this kind of, it was like a confidence that I would now attribute to like a spiritual guidance. But I wrestled with it for like 3 months. Like, what do I do? How do I change this? And one day I got this spontaneous thought in my head as I'm doing my intelligence analysis. And it said, what if we're asking the wrong questions? You know, in intelligence, you ask certain questions, and then you send collectors and spies and planes out there in the area of operations, and they come back answering your questions. And then based on that, you decide what operations to run to improve security and improve quality of life and return governance and essential services and all those things. But like nothing that we were doing was working, right? It was like complete opposite, and it was just creating mayhem and chaos and further death. So when I got that thought of like, well, maybe we're asking the wrong questions, and that's why we're getting the wrong answers, and that's why we're making the wrong decisions. And so it took me down this multi-month journey of like, first we're asking these types of questions, and then we're asking these types of questions. And then finally, the question that this thought, these spontaneous thoughts eventually led me to was, we got to ask why. Why is what we're trying to do not working? Why is it producing the opposite effect? And the answer has to include some humility in ourselves that we might inadvertently be doing the wrong thing. We might be making culturally inappropriate choices or communicating the opposite intent of what we want to communicate. And that experience led to a drastic transformation of how we did intelligence and therefore how we did operations. And my boss and I, we ended up taking over the effects of that brigade. And that area of operations in the next 3 months went from being the worst in Baghdad with the greatest like murders, you know, just horrific situations, no security, no economy, to the most stable in Baghdad within 3 months of just following that guidance. And over time, so I ended up sharing those lessons at an intelligence agency that I interned in as I was getting out of the army, and they were so awed by the stuff that I was sharing with them that I was like, maybe what I'm sharing is not like a new thing, or is maybe a new thing in terms of it's new to like the intelligence world. And I ended up writing an article, and that article went viral for a few years, and you know, you can see how that went. Like what happened from that article in the book. But essentially that guidance, one, gave wisdom, and in some Christian circles you might call that a word of wisdom that we receive from God spontaneously. And then it promoted humility, right? Let me look at myself and include my inadvertent mistakes, my lack of cultural awareness, my lack of relationships, or maybe lack of trust in the community, or the fact that I'm running around with lots of big guns, you know, telling people to change the way they live and bring my American culture into all that stuff, right? So bringing humility without like judgment or condemnation, just saying, hey, you know, we're probably missing our goals here because we're doing something wrong. So let's just shift that. And that is a very godly fruit, I would say, very fruit of the Spirit. It brings humility, it brings wisdom, it brings understanding, it brings a harvest, like a reward that's much bigger than expected. In 3 months, to have that dramatic of an operational shift in the Army is unheard of. So unless you have like a new commander. And we didn't, right? We just changed the way we thought about things. So that's just one example in the Army. So thanks so much for asking that question. And Amelia says, beautiful, a part of the human condition, yes. And then such a good example of being able to listen, having such a constructive effect when for all want incredible stories. Yeah. So thanks so much. Sounds like the Q&A portion is good for that section. I wanted to. I think we've talked about more than you know. So let's move on to the raffle prize. To thank everyone who signed up for my book newsletter, I'm going to select a random name from my subscriber list. There were 16 people who signed up. And now I'm going to go to App Sortios, which is a random name picker, appsortios.com. And I'm going to put Gila Die Raffle. I'm going to click Start to do the raffle. I want one winner, no substitutes. And then I want a duration of 5 seconds of sorting before we pick one of the 16 participants. All right, ready? Start. 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the winner is Chelsea Popiel from Central Maryland. So congratulations, Chelsea. I will reach out to you to find out which format of the book that you want to receive as your thank you for joining my newsletter. So I want to just close out here by letting you know some updates about the book and its publishing. So if you go to ihearthevoice.com, you'll see, and then if you click on virtual book launch party, you'll see some updates for the publishing dates for the different formats of the book. So Amazon Kindle ebook today is $9.99 and it is published. You can click to buy, and the original version is published, and you can click there to buy, or you can just Google Tenay Benes Amazon and it'll come up. The original version has like less than 10 cuss words in it. Although I don't love to use cuss words, I wanted to be raw about when I'm really in pain or really struggling with something, that those words still come up in my life and in my heart and when I talk to God sometimes. So they are in there. And it's somewhat of a veteran experience, unfortunately, to be surrounded by cuss words, so they tend to seep into your brain. So the original version in Kindle ebook is published right now, and you can get that for $9.99. But I'm producing a sanitized version just to remove those 5 or 6 words from the 530 pages, and I'm publishing that on the 22nd. So if you'd like to wait for that sanitized version, just wait till the 22nd. That's next Monday, and that will be available for you. The paperback is $19.99, and the original version is also available today. It's published. You can click to buy, but if you want the sanitized version, that will be available on Monday, September 22nd. That paperback is white paper, black and white photos. It's the affordable, accessible one. It looks like this. It's incredibly thick, but it doesn't have this line in the middle because this is an author's proof. And then also on September 22nd, the Amazon Premium hardcover is going to be published in the original version, and then a week later, the sanitized version for $99.99. Now, holy moly, why is it so expensive? Because it's like a premium version. I don't even have it yet, but it's a hardcover. It's glossy finish, and all the photos, there's like 33 photos inside. All the photos are color, full color. It's all of the highest printing quality that you can get on Amazon. So it costs $1 bazillion to print. And so just to get some return on my money on the sale of that book, I made it $99.99. So if you want something to remember this experience by, and you have $99.99, that is the book for you. Then the Amazon Audible audiobook is going to be $29.99, and that is coming December 24th. So Christmas Eve or earlier, but the latest is the 24th. So Christmas Eve last minute gift for yourself or for someone else. That's me. I've been recording recording my voice, reading my book. If you went to the book newsletter, you can hear the MP3s of the first 6 chapters, both original and sanitized. And I'm going to be finishing this book. Lynetta, you said list the sound. Okay. I'm going to be finishing recording this book in my little studio downstairs so that you can enjoy it on Audible. Then there's also links there, and that will be original and sanitized by the 24th. The PDF and the MP3 60 chapters are already available by going to ihearthevoice.com. And then I'm considering creating a PDF version and an MP3 version for other formats, but I haven't quite. Oh, it says I lost my sound. Can anyone else hear me? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs up if you can hear me, or thumbs down if you can't hear me. Okay, Amelia can hear me. All right, so I'm sorry, Lynetta, I must be on your end. Feel free to hang up and then jump back in. So that MP3 and PDF version, I'm considering publishing, but I have to just look at the publishing rights. So I'm giving myself a little bit more of a wiggle room to do all 8 formats, which all require different formatting and publishing and all of that. But between here and now and latest December 24th, they will all be available in the original version and the sanitized version. So thank you so much for joining my book launch. That concludes it. If we were in person, I would give a balloon to all of you because so that you can have something fun to take home. But instead of that, I just want to send you kisses. Thank you so much. Please share, check out the book. Would love your Amazon reviews with the book, and look forward to finding out how you liked it. All right, thanks so much. Have a wonderful day. Bye. Thank you, Amelia. So much gratitude. We'll share and write a review. Thank you so much. Bye. I'll just wait here till everyone leaves. Bye. Bye. Jane's Hope. Yay, mate. Bless the world. Thank you. Jeremiah can hear me. Thank you. Bye, Jeremiah. Bye. Bye, Amelia. You're welcome, Jeremiah. Thank you, Jeremiah. Said you're a great asset to our world. Thank you so much. All right, that's everyone signing off.